Hello, Facebook. I'm your host, Robert Butler. Got a great show today here on Sports Scope. By the way, if you guys get a chance, go back on Northeast Streaming Sports this week in sports with Jim Jeffcoat. I got to talk to former Dallas Cowboys Super Bowl champion with the Mac and Jack show on Sunday last week. We got into the previews of teams and whatnot, quarterback play. Very good show we did last Sunday, everybody. Today, going to go over, by the way, USC coach. That was one of my predictions in the preseason. Clay Helton was fired yesterday afternoon. I've got a name that nobody else is talking about. You might be able to see it in my title, everybody. Also, Ohio State, did I call that or did I call that? Oregon upset Ohio State. I talked about that back in August 5th, going over the college football schedule. We'll talk about that. But first, we're going to get a lot into the NFL. This is a football show, okay? If you're an NFL fan, and like I am, it's huge, okay? If your team has a top 5 offensive line or defensive line, you can win. You could get to the playoffs with a mediocre quarterback to somewhat erratic, undisciplined quarterback. Just with a subpar quarterback, if you have what is considered by the league for these metrics like Pro Football Focus or whatnot, a great pass rush, a good to great pass rush. If you have a good to great considered offensive line of all pros, you can have a great quarterback on a bad offensive line and not even make the playoffs. Okay. I mean, did you guys see the Saints game the other day? I mean, the play there with Jameis Winston, check this out. For example, the Saints were $100 million over the salary cap coming into this season. They didn't have Michael Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders. He's with the Buffalo Bills. Michael Thomas is hurt. Latavius Murray was let go because he wanted too much money, would not take a technical pay cut. They didn't have Jared Cook. And what did they do? They won 38-3 over the NFC Championship MVP-led Green Bay Packers. Did anybody see the Kansas City game? Apparently, a lot of people did. Kansas City and Cleveland, a team that had a hole so big for Nick Chubb, the running back, you could drive a car through it. And of course, they still lost. But I'll say this, that my prediction was for Cleveland to beat, and I was going against all odds, guys. I mean, no losses for Patrick Mahomes in September. One of the best September coaches in the history of the game, Andy Reid, at Kansas City. And I still picked Cleveland to go up there with those upgrades on defense, with another year experience with Kevin Stefanski and Baker Mayfield, to go up there and beat Kansas City in Kansas City. Now, of course, I was right for 3.5 quarters, but that brings me up to my first argument of the day. Baker Mayfield is a mediocre quarterback. The Browns have ideal offensive line, ideal defensive line, supreme coaching, supreme analytic-driven front personnel. DeCosta is the guy, and I may be getting it mixed up with the Baltimore guy. He's the guy from Moneyball. He's the Jonah Hill character, the real Jonah Hill character from the baseball movie Moneyball. The Cleveland Browns owner hired him 5 years ago. And he's gotten more power in that organization. But they arguably have the best. I know they got the best roster in the AFC, but they arguably have the best roster in the NFL. And Baker Mayfield, once you take away the underneath stuff, once you take away the giant running holes that you could drive a truck through, the punter, basically a missed punt from winning that game. But when it came right down to it, just like in the divisional game last year, he threw short, he forced 2 balls, and one of them became an interception. The other one was just a horrific pass. And like Lamar Jackson, he's in year 4. He's coming up on a contract extension of his rookie contract. And I'm saying, do not pay this guy. They still may get to the Super Bowl, and I still think they have a very good chance. I do. I still stand by my beliefs. But once you start paying this guy $38, $45 million a year, you're not going to have the number 1 offensive line in football. You're not going to have that secondary. You're not going to have Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett. You're not going to have all that depth at tight end. You're not going to have 2 wide receivers. Of course, Beckham didn't play yesterday. And, you know, I was looking at some stats at Kirk Cousins' first full year of being the Washington quarterback as a starter, 16 games, okay? Check this out. Read over all his stats real quick, and I'll make a bigger point here. In 2015, that was Cousins' first year, okay, as a full-time starter. Remember, they drafted Robert Griffin III. And in the same draft, Griffin gets hurt. Rookie year in the playoff game against Seattle, tears ACL or something, some horrific injury. And then later on, Cousins becomes a starter. This was back in 2012 when they're both rookies. But his first full year as a starter with the Washington football team, he had 29 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, a 101.6 quarterback rating. Okay? Baker Mayfield, let's go with Baker Mayfield's last year with this coaching staff. 2021 or 20. 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, only a quarterback rating of 95.8. And he's about 1,000 yards short of Kirk Cousins. You guys, it hit their stats mirror each other. And Minnesota's picked up Mayfield. They've got 1 win. They are not Mayfield, Cousins, paying this guy $38+ million a year. And they didn't make the playoffs last year. They can't put together a great offensive line. I still kind of like their chances. We've seen what New Orleans did. But you've got a guy that is essentially the same as Kirk Cousins, and people's treating this guy like he is. They're talking about him like he's a Josh Allen type of player, like he's a Russell Wilson type of player. I know I read. We played Mike Greenberg from ESPN, who's never really right about anything, but he read some stats on him. Most of those stats were scheme plays, underneath stuff, best running game in the NFL, best offensive line, one of the better defensive lines, according to Pro Football Focus. But when it come right down to it, He really can't make those throws. And he showed that Sunday. That was an awful forced throw. And that was my only reservation about Baker Mayfield coming into this season, because everything looked perfect for Cleveland coming in. Everything looked perfect for Cleveland. But I said, is he going to try to have that big moment in that big game, preferably game one, where he's going to try to get people like me and the people with bigger platforms than me talking about pay him now, extend him now, 200x million, make him $45 million a year guy. That Pickles, that game, as I said on this program, was the premium game of the week. That game Sunday between the Chiefs and the Browns drew a 19.5 million viewership. That was the highest opening week game on CBS since 1998. My guess is that was probably the Denver Broncos during their run there to win their 2 Super Bowls back-to-back, the Mile High Salute and all that. So people were very interested in this hype of the Cleveland Brown team, and I think they played well other than the missed punt. The punter shouldn't have done that. And Baker Mayfield, when it comes right down to it, he again failed. He is, and it's and the ownership and the staff there will not publicly, but privately in the back of their mind, they know that Mayfield is a mediocre Kirk Cousins-like quarterback, okay? And I'm trying to tell you now, you've got Casey Keenum on that team. And I think they have already paid him. They've already picked up his 5th-year option, which is about $18 to $25 million range. I want to say it's closer to $25 million since he was a first overall pick, which is still pretty good. But after that, you want to let this guy walk. Not unless he goes and ends the MVP and wins the Super Bowl. You've got to let that guy walk. You know, here's a good stat for you, folks. This is from Sports Tech Innovation. Got this article. This is written back in February of this year. More teams win the Super Bowl with a quarterback that does not have a franchise player max salary. From 2005 to 2020, only 3 times in the last 15 years has the Super Bowl winning quarterback been the top 5 highest paid quarterback that season. In fact, these winning quarterbacks, Brady was the 10th highest paid in the NFL, and Mahomes was the 24th highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Mega Max deals has not kicked in yet. So if you're running Cleveland, and I'm sure those analytic guys, your Podestas of the world, they're looking at that game. That's a pure sign right there. Same thing with Lamar Jackson, who played yesterday. When you pay these guys that kind of money, you're not going to have that kind of depth. Matter of fact, you're probably going to get worse. But what I would do is you let him play out this year. You've already picked up that 5th-year option, not unless you can trade him. Keep a guy like a Casey Keenum for a modest $3 to $5 million and go out, put together a trade package, and try it again. And that's the key over the past 15 years, because these salaries are going farther and farther and farther up, that you're not going to win this way. Only way I would even consider it, unless he is a Patrick Mahomes type of talent, and even then, I would advise him, even if I'm his agent, if you want to win and win big, take a chunk early and keep putting it back. You don't necessarily have to take a pay cut, but you can roll it back, and roll it back. Essentially, towards the end of that, you're going to have a Matt Ryan situation where you see how bad they are on their offensive line. They got rid of Julio a year too late. They should have done it 2 or 3 years ago. And that's another story. That'll be something I'll get into next. But at least the cap goes up. The cap is going to be 280, 300. It's going to bust way up here in the next few years. But when you pay when it's over 14% of your overall salary cap, you don't win that way. You have to and that's why I was telling people in the offseason, and I put some money behind it this year. Aaron Rodgers, Russell, as much as I like Russell Wilson, as well as he paid, these guys are $37, $38 million guys. Ben Roethlisberger last year before that, I didn't have them in the Super Bowl because I know the number. If you're over 14%, and that's my thing, guys like Kirk Cousins and Baker Mayfield, just because, and even Dak Prescott for that matter. You know, Jason Whitlock had a long monologue about him trying to live up to this contract that hasn't even kicked in yet. It's going to drive him mad trying to win because you can't get the defense. You can't quite get the offensive line that you want when you're making that kind of money. But you're not even paying this guy money yet, and you're already seeing that he is just a mediocre quarterback, Baker Mayfield. He's not going to grow anymore. He may get a little bit better this year because it's year 2 in the system, but he looks the exact same in a nice 72-degree day in Kansas City with his short hop passes and his forced interception as he did last year when it was freezing cold out there and the same type of situation. So I just, I'm telling you now, Cleveland fans, don't be pulling for this team to extend Baker Mayfield. Your window's now, you could still win it all now. That pass that Mahomes made, only Mahomes can do that. Only the pass to Tyreek Hill is fundamentally a no-no for any quarterback coach. For any form, Brady couldn't make that throw. He went against his body, Pickles, and he threw against his body out on the other side of the field into the middle of the field. Josh Allen can make that throw. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes made that throw. And Aaron Rodgers on a good day could make that throw. 10 years ago, maybe Ben Roethlisberger. But that's it. That is it. That's a pick 6 if Baker Mayfield throws that ball. But, yeah, Pickle says his window is now. I agree with that. Best line, defense looked good. Rex Ryan, listened to him on Get Up. He said that the defense got a little too conservative. They got away from what they were doing in the second half. He said, but if you're a Cleveland Brown fan, you had the lead for 35 snaps. Kansas City had the lead for 8. You had the lead for 3.5 quarters. I was going to come on here today and say this was a wire-to-wire victory for the Kansas City Chiefs. And, of course, you're throwing to a guy who that is Olympic-like speed of Tyreek Hill. But the thing about guys in Olympics, they don't have game speed like that. I'm not sure if Usain Bolt can take a hit in the NFL like a Tyreek Hill. Yeah, it was amazing play. The flip side to that game, like I still feel good about my picks overall. But the flip side of that is Kansas City, it's the last 6, 7, 8 games, they've been down in every single game early. And and Patrick Mahomes can only pull so many tricks out of his hat in this division, Pickles, where you've got every team in the division has won a game. Your AFC West has gotten better. The Chargers have gotten protection. For Sean Slater of Northwestern, the first-round pick left tackle. He had a great day. The Chargers won. The Raiders, a little fluky, but I said they would probably beat up on a severely banged up Baltimore team, and they won. Even though Baltimore's so deep, they still almost won. And obviously Denver. I predicted Denver would go to New York and they would win. They've got injuries now. They've got a cornerback, Ronald Darby's hurt, but now Surtain is going to be put in his spot. But they look good. It's not going to be a walk in the park for Kansas City. I said that, and I still believe it. Now, they've got Baltimore Sunday. They got a break there. But, Frank Clark is banged up. Honey Badger's banged up. Hitchens might not play. That's our lead linebacker. I read he might not play Sunday, Pickles. It's very difficult to get the 1 seed 2 years in a row, not named New England. It's very difficult to get back to the Super Bowl after losing. Nobody's done it, not even in New England, since the salary cap was implemented in 1994. We're talking 27 years, folks. It's just, there's only so many rabbits, so many passes out his rear end. And I love Patrick Mahomes. He's my favorite player. The players voted him last year as the NFL's best player, number 1 in the top 100. And I agree. He's the best player. He's great, So we'll see how it plays out. I still like my picks. As far as that, another team that really, because they're in a small market, nobody's paying attention. If the playoffs, we're hypothetically talking here, if the playoffs started Saturday, Pickles, and the Arizona Cardinals were in it, I would put them, even from the way they played Sunday on the road against a veteran team, against a veteran coach who's been to the playoffs, won the division, but the AFC Championship game year before that were practically the same players. If the playoffs were today, Arizona will be even money to get to the Super Bowl with Tampa. Of course, with Rams. But nobody's talking about how good they played. Practically perfect rating for Kyler Murray. Rondale Moore's turned out to be a hit already, the rookie receiver. A.J. Green, he's a 4th receiver on this team. Christian Kirk's number 2, in my opinion. And then you've got DeAndre Hopkins. I'm not in love with their head coach. But Chandler Jones had 5 sacks to 6 sacks. They had 6 sacks in that game. Tennessee had their left tackle back. They shut the run down. We'll see how they play. They've got Minnesota next week, and they should be heavily favored. But I'll say this, with Cliff Kingsbury coaching them, they still had more penalties than Tennessee did. Now, why is that even possible? If you're leading by that much, usually the team that's getting their butt kicked out there, they're usually the team that's frustrated and getting the most penalties. This time last year, they went to San Francisco and beat the Arizona Cardinals, beat San Francisco in San Francisco, only to lose at home to a Detroit Lions team that later fired their head coach. That's why I don't trust them through 17 games. Plus, they're going into also probably the best division in football. They're also 3-0, like a Kansas City in the AFC West. Interesting tidbit. Now, on the other side, Tennessee, the most embarrassing loss of Mike Vrabel's career. You say, well, they lost 40-14 to Green Bay. No, this was a home opener against the team that did not make the playoffs last year, with a coach who was fired from Texas Tech with an undersized quarterback in Nashville, could not run the ball, completely dominated Mike Vrabel. That's the most embarrassing loss of his career as a head coach of the Tennessee Titans. You say, well, what do you do? They were embarrassed so bad that I predict that Tennessee will either go up to Seattle and play them to the wire and lose a close game Sunday. They got to play at Seattle. Or they will go out to Seattle flat out and beat Seattle. If they do not do that, I also predict, and I told you guys before, I said the Rams, Colin Cowherd put the Rams as his number one hierarchy team this year. And now everybody's saying it. Stafford, MVP, best rating, yada. I told you guys that's what will be said. My point is, they got to play at the Colts next week. I think they're going to be this Sunday. I think they're going to beat the Colts. They're going to be 0-2. Houston's leading the division. Houston's going to get a number one pick, guys. They're not going to win. They're not going to win the AFC South. But when you've got a window like Tennessee does, and you go up there and go 0-2 and get humiliated like you did on Sunday, this is what I recommend. Okay, he's got Todd Downing, who he promoted as the offensive coordinator, like Arthur Smith, an in-house hire. And they have Shane Bowen, who helped out with the defense last year, 34 years old, from linebacker coach to offensive coordinator. Of course, Tennessee smoked again in the secondary, just like last year. And he hires Jim Schwartz as a assistant to this Shane Bowen guy. As of late, Mike Vrabel is too loyal to his assistants. He is too loyal to his assistants. Okay? And he has got to go back. Dean Pease was an outside-the-box guy. I understand Schwartz was outside-the-box guy. But I'm not being hyperbolic here. I'm just talking to you straight. The job of a head coach nowadays, and mainly this is for most teams, for most organizations, the job of a head coach is really just to mainly coach the coaches, coach the coordinator. Hold on, guys. Let me switch out my podcast. Okay. All right, now I'm back. So the job of a head coach is to coach the coaches, coach the coordinators. You know, it's to make sure that they have all their ducks in a row. And obviously these guys do not. It's really not calling plays and all. Sometimes you got Andy Reid doing that. But that's for the most part, his job is to coach them and make sure they're doing their job. It's like a CEO, you know. And these two coaches I just saw, if they play like they did, and that's a chance they could, especially on defense, you got to make changes immediately. Can that be successful? Yes, of course. You bring in some veterans who are familiar with the lingo around the league, guys that's been around the league 25, 30 years. I got two names right off the top of my head. Jim Caldwell, former coach of the Indianapolis coach Detroit. Jim Caldwell was hired in the middle of the season to be the offensive coordinator of the Baltimore Ravens with Joe Flacco. They went on a run. Flacco later wins the MVP of the Super Bowl. That's how good the offense became under Caldwell. Caldwell been around 35, 40 years in this league. I mentioned Rex Ryan. A lot of people don't like Rex Ryan. I don't like him as a head coach. But Rex Ryan knows defense. Tennessee, they're not aggressive enough. They do not get out the quarterback enough. They play way too much situational defense. This is all a lot of Jim Schwartz. That's why I didn't like that hire as an assistant from the get-go. Not a lot of blitzing, not a lot of stunts, none of that stuff. But you get a guy like Rex Ryan who lives in Nashville. He will work with what they got. He's not going to try to flip over the defense and make some non-personnel move that makes it be ridiculous. But if they get blown out, this is a team that has a window. Now, they're fourth in the AFC. They're behind Cleveland. They're behind Buffalo. They're behind Kansas City. Maybe make them 50. I'd probably put them behind Pittsburgh the way they played last week. But they are in it here. Rex Ryan has a home here in Nashville. He's doing get up. But I can tell he's eager to get back in, even if he's just taking an advisory role. But he would take it, and he would be my defensive coordinator. And Jim Caldwell. These guys are just two guys that I can think of off the top of my head. These guys know lingo. They can change things on a dime for Tennessee. When you have a veteran, battle-tested offensive line, when you have a 2,000-yard running back who's still 26, 27 years old, you have a Hall of Fame wide receiver. He's got plenty left in there. You have a quarterback that's been on this team for 3 years, had one of the highest QBR rating, one of the best red zone efficiencies in the NFL last year. And then you have another Pro Bowl level wide receiver in his prime, third year in A.J. Brown. There's a lot of coaches that would jump on and help Tennessee. Defensively, Bud Dupree, Simmons. I talked Evans. They have a fair to upper level linebacking core. They're a little young in the secondary. They do have one Pro Bowl level, Kevin Byard at safety. But I would make changes Monday morning, 6 days from today. If they get blown out like that again in Seattle, you got to have that conversation if you're Mike Vrabel. Ron Rivera did it middle of the season one year. It was too late. They didn't get to playoffs that year. This was when they did the All or Nothing series for Amazon. But Ron Rivera did it. But you're in a window now where the Colts got a rough 5-game stint. They're going to be 0-2. You're going to be 0-2 probably. You're still even with the Colts. You're in probably the weakest division in football. You got two teams that's going to be picking probably in the top 5, Jacksonville and Houston. You know, you have a chance to either win this division or do nothing. If you win this division, you host the home game, anything can happen in the playoffs. Teams get hot all the time. Pittsburgh in 2006 was not the best team in the league that year. They got hot at the right time. That 2012 Baltimore Raven team, they got hot at the right time. Do you guys know how many injuries that the 2010 Green Bay Packers had? They had 7 or 8 starters out. but they got hot at the right time, and then they won the Super Bowl. So this can happen for Tennessee. But that was one of the most embarrassing losses of the entire the league. They were favored at home. That's why I brought them up. Okay. So that's something to, let's see if I had anything else here. And again, as far as Minnesota, yeah, they look great. Or Arizona, they got to play Minnesota next week. In other games, again, the Saints-Packers. And I keep telling you guys this. I harp on this time and time and time again. I love fantasy football. Got the crap beat out of me last week. But I love fantasy football. But wide receivers and running backs, they look great on TV. They sell tickets. They necessarily do not win games. Okay? For example, I told you guys this Sunday on the Mac and Jack, but I also said that the Saints kept their defensive line intact. Cam Jordan, Marcus Davenport, those guys. They kept that defensive line intact. They kept their offensive line intact. And they got rid of everything around it, including Drew Brees, who retired. For example, Mike Thomas was out. He didn't get rid of it. He was hurt. Emmanuel Sanders now plays with the Buffalo Bills. Jared Cook was gone. There's their tight end last year. Latavius Murray was cut. Okay? And I told you that Green Bay, that left tackle, Bakhtiari, that people are poo-pooing at, we saw what happened in the Super Bowl. Rodgers, even though, yeah, he blew off half a training camp, that didn't help either in all of those mini camps. And Bakhtiari is out for the first 6 games because he's coming off an injury. They let an all-pro Corey Lindsey go, who played well Sunday with the Chargers. And you look at all those skill positions. Jameis Winston had 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, and they beat them on a neutral site, 38-3. Rodgers was benched for most of the fourth quarter. This was very much like the Tampa Bay game from last year in the regular season pickers. So, what's the lessons learned tonight? Don't pay mediocre quarterbacks superstar money. And don't pay wide receivers and running backs big money. You pay your offensive line. You draft high your offensive defensive line. You retain your offensive defensive line. You go for depth on your offensive defensive line. You find the best scouts money can buy. And you don't overpay for running back. You don't even give most of them second contracts, guys. Running backs, wide receivers, only your tight end, not unless he's if you're running a 2 tight end set and he's big on your blocking scheme, like a Kittle type of guy, that's different. But all that flash means nothing if the quarterback can't get the ball off, if you can't run your routes, you know? Hey, I'm just calling it like I see it, folks. I'm just calling it like I see it. Okay. One game I was wrong about. Okay, Pittsburgh, Buffalo. Again, Pittsburgh got the best, according to Pro Football Focus, best defensive line in the NFL. Pittsburgh Steelers went healthy, and they showed it on Sunday. That a defensive play, had a block punt touchdown, 3 sacks on Josh Allen. But, you know, it's an impressive win. That's why I was really hesitant not to put them in, but I decided to go ahead and put them in. I feel good about that now. Najee Harris only had 45 yards. Now, Singletary did have 72 yards, This is what Buffalo needs to work. This is why I was hesitant to put Buffalo in the Super Bowl this year, because I wasn't sure about the running game, Pickles. But the bright spot is he did have 72 yards on 11 carries, Singletary. What Brian Daboll, I think is his name, the offensive coordinator and the head coach and Josh Allen have to figure out from this day forward. And I think they started to catch on late in that game, but they've got Miami next week at Miami Sunday, I think they'll beat Miami, but they have to develop a short game. He always wants to go for the grand. He's like that golfer, Pickles, Josh Allen. He's like the golfer that can drive for dough, putt for dough. Everything can't be a 25-yard strike down the seam of the field. He can't be running like that all the time. He's another guy in year 4. He's already signed his contract and he's earned it. But you gotta screen that ball down. You gotta take the check down. Live the fight another day. That's what I would pound in his head. From now going forward, they're not going to go very far. And his window's going to be up because his contract's going to come in. And it's going to be that much harder for Buffalo to win. But that's what they have to work on in Buffalo. As far as the Steelers are concerned, they still got a pretty bad offensive line, yardage, all the statistics, but the score, which counts the most, favored Buffalo in that game. The Pittsburgh Steelers, you got to give Keith Butler heck of a game plan. Played really well. Got a lot of pressure on Allen. He's not checking the ball down. They saw the way Baltimore played Buffalo last year in the playoffs, and then they also saw the way Kansas City played Buffalo in the play. They're daring them to throw the ball, check down, and they're daring them to run the ball. They've got to establish the run game. You got to have balance in life. You got to have balance in the NFL. That's what, and if they don't do that this year and Buffalo comes up short, you got to fire that offensive coordinator and bring in somebody, not necessarily a Todd Haley, but a Todd Haley type of guy. The guy was brought in to help really make Ben Roethlisberger and Le'Veon Bell's career. All them drop down passes, you got to screen. Look how, why do you think Brady's playing in the league at 44 years old? He wants a running back that can catch that football when he's in trouble. Yeah, Keith Butler. A lot of national sports people were complimenting Keith Butler. Mike Tomlin is on somewhat of a hot seat. He hasn't won a playoff game, I want to say, in 4 years. Okay? As far as Pittsburgh is concerned, they have a huge win, a road win. They have their home opener Sunday against the Raiders. The Raiders played Monday night overtime. They have injuries on the offensive line. Their defensive line looks much better, the Raiders does. Yannick Njoku, Yannick Ngahu, whatever his name is, he's turned out to be a pretty good free agent signing so far. Had a good game against Baltimore. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Pittsburgh doesn't lay an egg and play down to the competition. Pittsburgh should beat the Raiders 34-17 easy. And that 17 would be garbage points. They should beat them 38-13 the way Arizona beat Tennessee. With their offensive line, with that pass rush, with them playing in early noontime. But I would be surprised if the Raiders beat up on Pittsburgh, because that's the knock on Tomlin. His teams notoriously play down to the competition. But we'll see. Other news and notes. Let's see. Giants, Denver. You know, I said that we talked about the offensive line. That's a theme, 32nd ranked offensive line coming into the league. Another fumble by Daniel Jones. All this hype about Saquon Barkley, 27 yards rushing. Of course, they lost. Okay, 49ers. 49ers look as good as I thought they were. Now, they did lose cornerback Jason Verrett. They signed Dre Kirkpatrick, former Alabama player, has kind of bounced around the league. Not a great corner, but he is a very efficient type of player. I'm surprised he was available. And so Dre Kirkpatrick, also Raheem Mostert is out, but they've got this Elijah Mitchell. Trey Sermon will be activated. So they're doing pretty good. They got to play at Philadelphia. Didn't like the way they finished that game, but it is what it is. Okay. Let's see. Again, with the lines, Atlanta, Philadelphia shows how bad the lines, the Falcons' offensive line. Now everybody's talking about Philadelphia and Jalen Hurts. Over time, we'll see how good or bad Jalen Hurts is. I still don't believe in Jalen Hurts. Philadelphia may be, this was my fear with them, if you're an Eagles fan, is they may be good enough where it's fool's gold, where you think Hurts is the guy, but he's really not. But again, like I said earlier, a strategy would be if you got a mediocre quarterback on a rookie contract, if you could get lightning in the bottle, you might be able to get to a Super Bowl. If you're very good and you drafted it really good on defense, you might be able to do that. But as far as paying him that second contract, I'll tell you right now, Jalen Hurts is not worth a second contract. He's not worth something even close to that. I'm telling you that right now. I've seen enough of him in Alabama, seen enough of him as a pro. You know, he's good against a crappy, awful roster like Atlanta Falcons. We'll see how he plays this week against the 49ers. Now it's at home. They might have a good running game. They got good defensive line. Good. Again, that's what it happens. You know, that's what that's how you win in this league. You know, it's not about that flash. The flash looks good when you have those two units, your offensive and defensive line. Rest, even linebacker. I mean, rest is just looks good from those play. You know, as far as Mac Jones, I read he had the best statistical games of all rookies. You know, if it wasn't for a Damian Harris fumble, they would win. Despite Tua's interception, Brian Flores has proven to be a good coach. You know, he's, again, mediocre quarterback. Could get them to the playoffs. Get a guy like Watson, will set them over the top. But that being said, Miami, hey, a win's a win, you know. A win's a win. Jalen Waddle got his first career touchdown. Will Fuller was hurt. What else is new? But you got Devontae Parker, Mike Gesicki. Not a bad running back there either. But he just can't stay healthy. Again, I was talking about Rashawn Slater with the Chargers. This Charger team went against one of the best defensive lines in football. Slater held Chase Young in check. They did give up 2 sacks, but they got the win. That all-pro center, Corey Lindsey, and Rashawn Slater, the 13th pick, turned out to be money for this LA Charger team. I thought that Ryan Fitzpatrick would last about four games. He ended up lasting 4 quarters. And now they're going to go with Tyler Heinicke. Let's see how that plays out. They play on Thursday, Pickles, against the Giants. They should beat the Giants with that offensive line. But, you know, if you're an Atlanta fan, you just got to think to yourself, you know, you really wish that they would have went with you really wish that they would have went with a quarterback or make a move to get a better quarterback instead of taking a tight end with that 4th pick, man. and then trying to work that quarterback in until your dead money of getting rid of a Matt Ryan falls off. But hey, I'm not the guy calling the shots, man. It just is what it is, okay? Okay. I'm trying to see. I know about the USC thing. I've got notes on the USC thing. All right. Yeah, USC I called that. I said Clay Helton with USC would get fired. And I'll tell you this, I didn't think it would be that soon, but they fired him going to get blown out by Stanford. Now, nobody else is bringing this name up, but California native is available. Chris Petersen. Chris Petersen, who took Washington when they was nothing, got them into the playoffs just like 2 years into it. Won at Boise. He is only 50. I looked him up, Pickles. He's retired for a year. He stepped away from Washington, said he wanted to clear his mind. A lot of guys take time off. You know, they take time off for a year. For instance, Urban Meyer, he was feeling stressed out, took a year off or two, took the Ohio State job from when he left Florida. Things got a little hot and heated at Ohio State. Took a year off. I think it was 2. Now he's back in the NFL with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Petersen took last season off. And Chris Petersen, people bringing up all these other names. Chris Petersen is an instant, he would put instant change into that program. He's a number one guy I would get a hold of. Guys, he's 56. Note to you all, Nick Saban is 69 years old and had his absolute best. We've seen how good Alabama looks. So 56 is not like 56 was 20 years ago. Okay? Yeah, Eric Bieniemy, that's another distraction. His name has been brought up in conversations according to Adam Schefter sources. So, again, with the Kansas City distractions, when you're that successful for this many years in a row, people are going to try to go after your assistants. You're everybody's number one team. You are circled on everybody's calendar. So teams get off to good early starts because all those assistants and all those players know that they're going to be trending if they beat you. You know? Barrett Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator, Kansas City, he's been in discussions. These are a few of my personal ones. Bob Stoops took a XFL job in 2019. He's been out of college for about 4 years. He feels good. He's wanting to get back into coaching. I will look at Bob Stoops. Okay. What about Hugh Freeze from Liberty? Hugh Freeze beat Alabama at Ole Miss. He's used to being in big games. Okay. Hugh Freeze is a really good coach. That's who I would try to go after. These type of names. Think big. Some people brought up James Franklin. Maybe. But if I'm James Franklin, I'm trying to win a national championship at Penn State first, you know? But Chris Petersen would be my number one guy. Instant fix. Instant flat, you know? So, anyways, I'm going to change out this thing here one more time. Hold on, everybody. Make sure I got this 25 minutes in. We start a new one. This thing goes by quickly. So, okay. We had an upset college football. Ohio State. Listen to what I said on August 5th, breaking down the Ohio State Buckeyes season here and predicting a potential loss in the first 2 games. Listen up. Okay? But Ohio State, they got at Minnesota, then they play Oregon at home. I think they lose one of those games. if they win those games. But they didn't win those games. I had a change of heart because this Javon Thibodeau is supposed to be a top 5 draft pick. He was hurt in the Fresno State game, along with Justin Flo, one of their best freshman linebackers. He's a 5-star guy, 2 pickles. Both of those guys didn't play. Okay? Then on top of all that, the networks wanted to put this game at 12 p.m. Eastern time. Well, Oregon playing in the Pacific time zone, you saw the running games and the running backs have huge rushing games against Minnesota the week prior to this. So that is a huge plus for a deeper Ohio State team. Early start time, road game, helps the running game. Top 5 defensive end, top 5 NFL prospect. Mel Kiper says he's the number 1 prospect, but I never buy that. It's always going to be a quarterback. Just let the season play out, folks, okay? And then you had one of your linebackers out against a deeper Ohio State, but you had a veteran quarterback in Oregon. That was my school of thought coming into this game in the preseason versus a true starter getting 2 big games in a row, and it just didn't work out. They were really well coached, and they go on the road, and they beat Ohio State. Now they've got other injuries. But now Ohio State takes that step back. You know, that opens it right back up for Clemson. Now, Clemson, they're going to need some breaks. They're going to have to hope that the other ACC teams play better. Now, of course, Florida State had a really bad loss to it was a low-end team. I can't remember who it was. They lost. That made them look bad. But that was one I predicted there. I want to make sure I didn't miss any other. Seems like I missed somebody. See, we got Mac Jones, Tua, Baltimore Ravens, Chargers, LA, Philadelphia. Okay, yeah, I got just about everybody that was really worth getting here. I didn't think this show was going to go by this quick, Pickles. I tell you, man. If you guys like the show, share the show. I will be back on Thursday. We'll do a little preview. I'll probably talk about some other hot topics coming up here in the next few days in the NFL world. Coming up in the NFL world, I tell you, again, with a team like the Titans, you got to be quick to make personnel changes if things aren't getting done. There's not a lot of injuries there, Anytime you got that bad a play, and this is for other teams around the league, and you don't have a bunch of injuries, that is coaching. That is being prepared. And you've got a league now where you have players not wanting to practice, wanting to blow off this camp, that camp, this preseason. When you do enough of that, then you start to get starts like what happened, with Green Bay. A lot of that was the offensive line, but a lot of that was timing too, Green Bay don't have a short game, really. That's kind of a thing. And really, Tennessee needs to develop a short game. If it's me, Pickles, and you're getting beat like that on the outside, you probably want to put that other running back, Evans, in there. McNichols, with a Derrick Henry who doesn't really catch the ball in the backfield. You have to have that element when your offensive line is getting their butt kicked. What do you think, Matt? Why do you guys think that Brady, that's what I want really to end the show. Games, offensive, defensive lines really control games. But if you're getting beat, even in the college, if you're getting beat like a drum, You got to have that running back that can catch that ball and get a few yards to slow the pass rush down. When you're running wide open, time, stop, running back, pull back, stop, run. You're going to wear down, even if you are in great shape, because the offense knows where they're going, but you don't know where they're going. You're exhilarating more energy. So that's what the running game, and the check down can be the substitute for the running game. Just food for thought. Again, teams that get humiliated. I like Tennessee to possibly bounce back this week, get very close, if not go out and beat a Seattle. Same thing with a Green Bay, even though Green Bay, it's more of a personnel problem, but they're playing Detroit on Monday night. They're going to play a lot better. They're going to play a lot better against Detroit at home on Green Bay on Monday night. So anyways, guys, I'll be back here Thursday around halftime of the Thursday game, maybe a few minutes before. Again, like the show, share the show. We'll see you then. Have a good night. Check your postings around. Look for notifications for Sports Soap to come on around 8:45, So anyways, I will see you guys later. I'll be back here Thursday around, give or take a few minutes, 9 p.m. Central Time here on Sports Scope.